In 1987, a retired steelworker in Pittsburgh survived on just $11 a week for groceries. For 3 years, he ate the same one-pot meal every night, and according to his doctor, his blood work was better than most men half his age. That meal appears as number 4 on this list, a recipe he learned from his mother during the Great Depression. These 25 meals were created for one purpose: survival. They nourished people eating alone at kitchen tables that once seated 6, people stretching a Social Security check across 30 days, hoping the numbers would somehow work out. At number 25 is tomato and bread soup, the kind of meal you make when there is almost nothing left in the cupboard, but you still want something warm and satisfying. With just stale bread, a can of tomatoes, garlic, water, and a pinch of salt, you could create a thick, comforting stew. After 20 minutes of simmering, the bread dissolved into a rich, porridge-like texture that filled both the stomach and the kitchen with warmth. Brought to America by Italian immigrants in the 1940s, this humble dish became a staple in struggling households. Today, it may appear on restaurant menus under fancy names, but for many it was simply supper. Number 24 is potato and onion stew, a quiet classic from Appalachia. Made with just a couple of potatoes, 1 onion, a bit of butter or bacon grease, and water, it slowly cooks into a creamy, hearty dish without any actual cream. Cheap, filling, and easy to prepare, it was a lifeline for seniors living on limited incomes. Nothing was ever wasted in kitchens that understood hardship. When a ham was eaten down to the bone, that bone became the foundation of the next meal. Simmered with soaked navy beans, onions, and carrots, it transformed into a thick, flavorful soup that could feed someone for days. This wasn't just cooking, it was resourcefulness passed down through generations. At number 22 is cabbage and sausage pot. With just a head of cabbage and a few smoked sausage links, this simple dish simmered into something deeply comforting. As it cooked, the cabbage softened and turned sweet, while the sausage infused the broth with rich, smoky flavor, proof that even the simplest ingredients could create a satisfying meal. Garlic and smoke gave this humble dish its depth. A single head of cabbage cost less than $1 and could feed one person for days, while smoked sausage could sit in the refrigerator for weeks without spoiling. For seniors with arthritis, this meal required almost no effort, no careful knife work, no complicated steps. The cabbage could be torn by hand, the sausage snapped into pieces. It demanded no strength, no skill, and very little money. Polish grandmothers in Chicago made it weekly. German families in Wisconsin relied on it through long winters. It crossed cultures and traditions because hardship does not care where you come from. At number 21 is rice and canned chicken stew, the meal you made when getting to the store was not an option. With just a can of chicken, a cup of rice, a can of cream of mushroom soup, and water, everything went into one pot. 20 minutes later, you had a warm, creamy dish reminiscent of a simple chicken and rice casserole. There was no need to handle raw meat, no concern about cooking temperatures, just open, pour, stir, and wait. During the 1970s and 1980s, this became a staple for rural seniors living miles from the nearest grocery store. Their pantries were stocked with canned goods, and meals like this could be made without a single fresh ingredient. It wasn't fancy, but it provided something more important: independence and nourishment. Number 20 is chili with beans, not the elaborate slow-cooked version, but a practical everyday meal. Ground beef, kidney beans, canned tomatoes, chili powder, and salt, nothing more. In just 30 minutes, you had a pot of chili that could last for days, often tasting even better the next day. For someone cooking alone, it was the perfect batch meal. Make it once, eat it throughout the week. Food banks and church groups knew this recipe well. They often bundled these exact ingredients together, understanding how far it could stretch for someone in need. At number 19 is egg drop soup, a dish that required almost nothing but delivered comfort in minutes. A pot of boiling broth, 2 eggs, and a gentle hand were all it took. As the beaten eggs streamed into the broth, they formed soft, silky ribbons. With a pinch of salt and a dash of pepper, the soup was complete. This was the meal people turned to when they were sick, tired, tired or simply not hungry but knew they needed to eat. It was warm, gentle, and nourishing, ready in under 5 minutes and costing very little. For someone living alone, it felt like comfort in its simplest form. These meals were more than recipes, they were survival strategies. They were created by people who had no one else to rely on. For seniors living alone, cooking is not just about food, it's about energy, memory, and sometimes loneliness. A quiet kitchen, once full of life, becomes a place of routine. Recipes are scaled down not by choice, but by circumstance. In that reality, OnePotMeals offered something essential. When the body aches and the thought of washing multiple dishes feels overwhelming, a single pot can mean the difference between eating well and not eating at all. These meals existed at the edge of necessity, the line between eating and not eating, between staying nourished and slowly declining, between independence and the moment you pick up the phone to say, "I think I need help." They were never about presentation or trend. They were built for survival. Number 17 is lentil and carrot stew. Just a cup of dried lentils, a couple of carrots, an onion, and water. Simple ingredients that Depression-era mothers once wrote on index cards for their children. Lentils required no soaking and cooked quickly, breaking down into a thick, hearty stew that kept you full for hours. The carrots brought sweetness, the onion added depth, and the cost stayed low. Today, lentils are praised as a nutritional powerhouse, rich in protein, fiber, iron, and folate. But the people who relied on them didn't need labels, they just knew they worked. Number 16 is corn chowder, a forgotten staple of frugal kitchens. With canned creamed corn, whole kernel corn, a potato, and a bit of milk, you could create a rich, velvety soup with almost no effort. The creamed corn thickened the chowder on its own, eliminating the need for extra steps. It was flexible, affordable, and comforting, a meal that waited patiently in the pantry until it was needed. At number 15 is black-eyed pea stew, a southern classic rooted in resilience. Simmered with a ham hock, onions, and tomatoes, the peas softened into a smoky, tangy stew that could stretch across several meals. Served over rice, it went even further. This wasn't fine dining. It was careful planning, built to last through the month. Number 14 is one-pot beef and macaroni, known in many homes simply as goulash. Ground beef, macaroni, and tomato sauce cooked together in a single pot created a filling, familiar meal. It reheated beautifully, making it ideal for anyone cooking once and eating for days. It wasn't authentic to its European namesake, but it didn't need to be. It fed people, and that was enough. Then there's a truth the food industry rarely highlights. Meals like these stay cheap because they rely on ingredients that cannot be easily marked up. Beans, rice, potatoes, onions, cabbage. There's no branding behind them, no advertising campaigns. They don't generate profit, so they're rarely promoted. Meanwhile, processed meals are sold at higher prices despite offering less nutrition. The contrast is simple and uncomfortable. Number 13 is chicken and dumplings, made from the most affordable parts of a chicken. Simmered into a rich broth and topped with soft, pillowy dumplings, it created a meal that felt generous even when resources were limited. For someone living alone, one pot could last for days, each reheated bowl carrying the comfort of a home-cooked meal. Number 12 is split pea soup, thick, filling, and nearly impossible to ruin. A bag of split peas, a ham bone, and a few vegetables transformed into a dense, nourishing soup that only improved with time. It was forgiving, reliable, and deeply familiar to generations who depended on it. Number 11 is canned salmon patties with gravy. Simple ingredients, salmon, crackers, egg, and onion, formed into patties and cooked in a single pan, then finished with a quick gravy. It was economical, practical, and surprisingly nutritious, providing both protein and calcium. Finally, number 10 is navy bean soup. Made with little more than dried beans, onions, celery, and salt, it simmered into a creamy, satisfying dish. Some added a splash of vinegar at the end to brighten the flavor, but even without it, the soup stood on its own, proof that the simplest meals can still nourish deeply.